Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Argylle. This is Matthew Vaughn's latest film written by Jason Fuchs, and this focuses on the story of a reclusive author who writes espionage novels, and when a spy comes into her life and tries to protect her when a real evil organization tries to get her because her books are prophetic. And this is basically like the same trailer over and over and over again that played in theaters. Thank God I got to see it and I don't have to watch that trailer again. But this film is very Matthew Vaughn. Except the biggest problem I had with this movie is this is insanely violent, ridiculously over the top violent, and somehow this movie's PG-13. Like all like films like Kingsman and that, they go for it. They go very bloody. I get why this was made PG-13 because it was a $200 million movie, which, absurd, ridiculous. We'll get to that. But there's so much violence in here, and there's no blood or anything, but it's still equally as violent. So that was something weird that took me out of the film. But generally, it's Matthew Vaughn. Unfortunately, this is a little bit more Golden Circle than the first Kingsman, because this is overly bloated. It really leans into silly things, which I think if they really leaned into the campiness, like the story within a story, like the Argylle story where you have Henry Cavill and John Cena and Ariana DeBose and Dua Lipa, that was ridiculous, campy, over-the-top, insane. If it kind of kept that kind of tone, I think it would have worked consistently throughout the film. But, you know, it does get a little heavier. It does have a little bit of a serious edge at times. And maybe tonally it's a little off in that way. But still, this is a very bloated film. But I loved, like, the opening sequence minus the fact that, like, it felt like a cartoon. And when you had $200 million budget, this shouldn't look like a cartoon, honestly. But the effects were not great. It looks cartoonish, it looks silly, and the film doesn't lean enough into that for it to feel right, and you also spent way too much money for this to look that cartoonish and silly looking. I feel like our main character, Ellie, is a lot more complicated than the film leads on, and I think Bryce Dallas Howard has some fun transitioning between some things in her performance. And overall, though, like, at the beginning, she's not the most particularly interesting protagonist, and there's not a lot there, but I think Bryce Dallas Howard has enough charisma. But it's really Sam Rockwell, who's Aiden Wilde, who's the spy, and he's the star of this film. He kills it in every scene that he has, whether he's serious, what he's showing depth, or he's just having a wild good time. Ha! I do think Henry Cavill really plays the Argylle character that he's signed up for well. He does look extremely ridiculous with that hair, and also he's so massive in like this velvet green Nehru jacket and everything. I'm just like, this looks so absurd. But that's the fun of it. Like, the opening scene is the story within a story, and it's absurd. It's fun, and I kind of want to see that because it looks so absurd and fun. And then you get to what actually is going on. And a lot of the characters have no depth. Like, Bryan Cranston is maniacal and evil. And that's great, but, like, not a lot of depth to it. There's also a lot of great I think Dua Lipa has a lot of fun here. Barely in the movie. Ariana DeBose, great actress, great performer. Not in the movie. Very often. Richard E. Grant pops in for, like, 2 seconds. Even John Cena, who has some fun when he's on screen, and he's not really in the movie that much either. It's a lot of... I feel like there was a lot of wasted potential on the table. Samuel L. Jackson is Samuel L. Jackson. And what's even weirder is when he is on screen, they're like... A lot of times it's just watching him. I think the action, though, is really well shot. And there's some really interesting things with how Ellie is perceiving everything, and you get her point of view, and as she blinks, you see the fluidity switching between Sam Rockwell and Henry Cavill, and I think that's a really cool idea, and I really appreciate it in the film. It's just one of those things where the action is really exciting. It's just overlong, over-bloated, but I still had a fun time with it, and also they kill it with the music. The new song from Boy George, Ariana DeBose, and the bass player from Earth, Wind, and Fire, Nile Rodgers, Electric Energy. Love it. It's going to be stuck in my head for forever. And they really use the music well in this film, and it really knocks your socks off. It's such a blast from start to finish, and it's a fun time. And, of course, the big mystery of who's the real Agent Argylle. I think it worked. It wasn't like I didn't love it. I think a lot of people, and Reddit specifically, blew this so out of proportion and ridiculous that they're just going to be disappointed. But I think it was an effective twist, and I think it really added to the story as a whole, and it wasn't just more for just shocks. And it made you recontextualize a lot of the film in that way. Also, the cat, luckily, is an actual cat for a decent amount of the film, because that CGI is terrible. But in the end, Argylle is a hot, big mess of a time, but I had some fun with it. I had a good time. I'd watch it again. But, the 2 hours and 20-minute runtime is not ideal. But those are my thoughts on Argylle. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some movies. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.